Hello, it's Mrs. Russo giving you some tips and tricks for 6.8 strategies for ordering and comparing fractions. So over the past few days, we've just been comparing two fractions and using inequalities like greater than or less than and even the equal sign to show how different fractions relate to each other. Now we're actually given multiple fractions and have to order them from most of the time least to greatest, but I am making them aware that I could mix it up and do greatest to least. So over their homework, they should have highlighted some of those to let them know what they're supposed to be doing ahead of time. So now we're not just using one strategy to order fractions. They actually have to use almost all the strategies sometimes to order the fractions. So the first fractions we're going to be dealing with today are 7/10, 1/3, 7/12, and 8/10. So when they look at these fractions, we can first off use the strategy, which one is the smallest. So as I go through, I'm going to be looking at the denominators. So if I look at 7/10, I'm going to ask myself, what's half of 10? 5. So this one I know is actually bigger than a half. Sorry, my iPad's being angry. 1/3, what's half of 3? I always say $3, and most of the time they can tell me it's $1.50. Well, this one is actually less than a half. What's half of 12? 6. So this one's also bigger than a half. And what's half of 10 again? 5. So this one's also bigger than a half. So right now it is really obvious which one is the least fraction, and that is 1/3. So I'm actually going to have them X this out because I don't have to deal with it anymore. One of the strategies we've worked on yesterday for comparing fractions is we can look at the common numerator or common denominator. Doesn't matter which order we go in today, but because this fraction has a 7 in the numerator, I'm going to find the one with the 7 in the denominator to figure out which one's smaller and which one's bigger. If the number in the numerator is the same, all they have to think of now is how big are 10th size pieces and how big are 12th size pieces. Which one is bigger? Well, if you break up a whole into 10 pieces and you break up a whole in 12 pieces, a 10th size piece will actually be bigger than a 12th size piece. So right now we have 7/12 and 7/10. Now we're going to go into, we've kind of ordered these two. Now I'm going to look at 8/10. Well, my denominators in these two are the same. So if your denominator is the same, all you have to think of is what's bigger, 7 or 8. In this case, 8/10 is bigger. Now most of the time in the past, all they've had to do is commas. Well, we don't want commas anymore. We want them to actually use the inequality signs. So we have 1/3 is less than 7/12, which is less than 7/10, which is less than 8/10. So we have the strategy of using common denominators. We have the strategy of looking at common numerators. And we have the strategy of using benchmark fractions. What is something closer to? A 0, 1/2, or 1/2 to help us figure out how big something is. Our next thing we're going to look at is sometimes we're just going to have to do our M and find the least common multiple and make two fractions have common denominators to compare them. So using the strategy earlier of benchmark fractions, is 1/5 closer to 0, a half, or a whole? Well, looking at all of these fractions, these are both over a half. This one is under a half. So that one's obviously my least amount. Now looking at this, they're both over a half. This is only one piece away, but it's a bigger size piece. 8 size pieces are smaller. I'm just a little unsure. So they're going to do their M, and they're going to go through and list their multiples. 12, 15, I might just stop there because I'm unsure. 8, 16, 24, oh, not there yet. 18, 21, 24. So the least common multiple they have is 24. So now I need to change my fractions so they have the denominator of 24. Trying to find some open space somewhere. Hopefully they're a little neater and they'll have more than I do. So they have to multiply both the numerator and denominator here by 8 to make sure it's an equivalent fraction. So 2/3 right now, an equivalent fraction is 16/24 times 3 times 3, 15/24. So looking at them, they are really, really close to almost being equal, but they're not. 5/8 is slightly smaller, so that's going to be my next fraction listed, and then 2/3. Try to avoid them listing these in their ordering. I want the original fraction. Now we have to use our inequality signs. 1/5 is less than 5/8, which is less than 2/3 is our final answer. Hopefully this will help you see all the different strategies we're using in class to help compare and order numbers. Thank you.